Welcome to the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-hosts, Dr. Steve Jeffs and Erwin de Grave. Each episode, we bring you expert guests and transformative coaching insights. Let's dive in.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another The Coaching Podcast interview. Here together with my partner in crime, Steve. And today we're here together with Simon Delaney. Hello, Simon.
Hello. Thanks for the invite. Good to be here.
It's our pleasure. So, Simon, who are you? Why don't you give a quick introduction about you, Simon?
I will. The big questions first, right? Who am I? Simon Delaney, I am a coach. My background originally was many moons ago. I trained as an actor, worked as an actor for a number of years, got into training, development, coaching. And so in some ways, I've been coaching for the best part of nearly 25 years. And then in other ways, it doesn't feel that long. So that's me.
That's fantastic. And so having had that, lifetime of coaching, but also not being that long, what was it that attracted you to sort of formalizing the coaching skills and getting certified and things like that?
Yeah, good question. Well, if I go back a little bit further, actually, I suppose in terms of what really attracted me into coaching in the first place. So I was an actor. I was doing a really fantastic job in the West End and thinking on paper it was everything that I wanted to do. And I found myself pulling my motorbike over to the side of the road on the way to the theatre and calling in sick, which if you know anything about actors, they never do that because that means the understudy goes on. And there's a high risk that they are way better than you and you never should have got that job in the first place. And so the reason I'm sharing that is that I found this work from a place of really wanting to be doing something that helped people. I loved acting, I loved theatre, but it wasn't quite hitting that for me. It was doing something, but it wasn't quite doing the thing that I wanted it to do. So from there, I started to work using those skills in business, doing things like role play and simulations and things like that. And then I got to a point in my career where I trusted my instincts enough, but felt like the rigor which I had in my acting training wasn't quite there in my coaching. And so that's where I started the journey towards properly training, certifying, and so on and so forth.
Oh.
I guess the inverse question. So how do you see your acting background showing up in service of your coaching work?
Yeah. So that's something that it's taken me a long time to really feel like I deserve to be in the coaching space in the way that I am. And
what do you mean by that? Deserve to be in the coaching space?
Well, there's some active saboteurs were running the show for quite a long time, and they were saying things like, "What do you know as an actor? What have you got to teach anybody? What do you know about anything to do with business and all that stuff?" And so the battle with that was quite a long one. But now I almost look back on that and go, it's really obvious because actors use their what I would call human technology to create impact, connection. Might be on stage in front of a camera or whatever it is, but that's what every human being does. So every human being has the same tools available to them to go and make connections with people. So whether you're a new manager, whether you're leading an organization, whether you are leading an enormous global transformation, everybody's got the same kit and gear that they need to make those connections. So fundamentally, that's where that overlap and crossover becomes pretty obvious to me now.
So basically, you're saying that everybody should be an actor in their life?
Actually, I'd say everyone is an actor in their life in some way. But I wouldn't recommend the life of an actor all the time, but I would say that the skills of performance are absolutely relevant in pretty much any context in life, to be honest with you.
Could you give us some example about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people that I work with they'd fall in the bracket of being technical experts. So they're some of the smartest people in business that I've had the opportunity to work with and the privilege of working with, actually. But as many people have probably experienced, and maybe some people listening to this might be wrestling it with themselves or their clients might be wrestling with it, you can be the smartest person in the room by some considerable distance. But if you can't communicate that knowledge, if you can't simplify the complexity that you've got in your head, then really that knowledge is not going to land. You're not going to make those connections. So there's a few people coming into my mind as I speak, and obviously I'll try and keep it as anonymous as possible. But there is a leader that I've been working with for some time now, who is one of the smartest people I've met. They've founded this incredible company that's doing amazing work that serves humanity, frankly. But they've also got lots and lots of those voices I was talking about earlier on. They've got the saboteurs. They've got some stories playing out for them, which is I'm not interesting, I'm not engaging, and so on. And so some of the work that I've been doing with this particular person is pure coaching in some respects, and also performance coaching training, if you like, for them as well. So actually, there's certain things that he does with his body that stops his breath serving him, which means his voice comes out in a way that is not particularly powerful, which he then hears, and he gets into a loop which makes him go faster and faster and faster and faster. And so very simply, it's like, well, let's get into the mechanics of that, but also let's get into some of the thinking and the stories and bust some of these beliefs about yourself.
Nice. And what impact has he been seeing as you've been with him around these things?
Well, he sent me a recording just about 2 or 3 days ago of him speaking at a conference, and I was completely blown away. I know you're supposed to have this really cool coach non-attachment to your clients and all that stuff, and I do believe in that. But it was actually really emotional watching this video of him away from the lectern. He used to cling onto the lectern, and he's moving around the stage with a head mic, engaging the audience in different ways. And he looked like he was enjoying himself. So that was an immediate impact. It's not always like that, but that was an immediate impact.
Take it when it's there. I love that little voice that kind of came out. I've got to be cool. I've got to be kind of distant, but actually, human to human, there's a real pride that I sense. Like it's like, man, look where you've come from.
Yeah,
You're awesome. This is brilliant. It's not about me taking the credit, but it's about just being able to witness that journey and to contrast the before and after and go, that really is truly amazing. And look at how much more effectively you, client, are using your human technology to impact the people around you.
You, as ever, Steve, you've hit many nails on many heads in how you've summarized that, because I can't exaggerate enough, or I can't exaggerate rather, just how much of a privilege I feel it is to go on those journeys with people. You've got people who are pushing themselves so far outside of what's comfortable for them that just to be around that is, well, there's a kind of connection high, I think, probably that you get from it, but it's pretty special. Yeah.
A quick question about, because probably a lot of coaches will be listening, and they have all those crystal crescent voices in there hanging, one or more than one. What would be one tip that maybe you can share with them that would help them, as how can I deal with that voice in there, and how should I maybe set up or do whatever? I don't know. You will tell us to help them.
Yeah, no, happy to. I mean, there's a few. I think one of the things that really shifted my thinking was some years ago. I came across something called internal family systems. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's actually was founded on a family therapy system, and then evolved into the basic premise of it being that we have all these different parts that are part of us, and most of them form in childhood. And those times where we talk about the voices or the saboteurs or the allies or whatever we might choose to call them, even when it feels like we're being beaten up by them, really they're trying to do something to protect us and to help us in some way. So actually, one of the things that I have found so powerful with clients and with myself is to very, very gently start to turn towards them rather than away from them and make friends with them a little bit, right? So if this was a friend, what's it trying to tell you? What's it trying to, what danger is it trying to protect you from? So I would say from a, if you like, a psychological, emotional level, actually pay a bit more attention to what's happening and how might they be able to help you if they were on your side. From a physical perspective, the good news is our bodies are actually relatively simple when it comes to state management. And again, coming back to that link between actor training and business performance or just life in general, actor training is all about learning to release unnecessary tension in the body. So if you need to fill a big theatre, you're going to need a lot of voice. If your body is really tight, everything gets constricted. It's harder to make sound. By the third, fourth night, you may well have no voice left, right? So if you apply that to settings where you're nervous, the saboteurs are going wild, and it's challenging, actually, some really simple tips are, things like just getting physical, getting active, stretching, making sure that you even if it's just an intention at first, see if you can allow the breath to drop further down into the belly. Just notice that you have more time than you think you do. And in those pauses that you can create, you can be breathing, you can be oxygenating. And all of these things are about getting out of your own way and focusing on what's really important, which is the person in front of you. So some simple rituals around physicality and release of tension can be really powerful.
I love it. Tell us a little bit more about that statement you said. You have more time than you think you have. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So from my experience, the vast majority of people, the vast majority of people tend to compress the time that they have available when they're speaking or when they're connecting with someone. And really what that looks and sounds like is they'll just rush. So if you think we go through and protect, especially when you're under pressure, right? So lots of eyes on you or a certain pair of eyes on you might get the heart going, might get the tension up, might lock the breath up. And often I think we feel that the safety is in lots more words and the dangers in the silence. So we'll over talk. And in actual fact, if we take the principle of it's always the responsibility of the speaker to create the space for your audience to receive your messages, right? So create the space for your audience, whether that's one person or 1,000, actually just let it breathe a little bit. You've got more time. Most people want you to be clear, succinct, confident, good, right? They're not hoping that you fall over. So give yourself a bit more space and time. Rarely do audiences go, come on, hurry up, hurry up. More often will an audience be going, whoa, let's just put the brakes on it a little bit and let me in.
Now, what would it be if you would have a time limit? So, for example, I'm moving a lot in the startups world, and to say, hey, you have 2 minutes to present, to do a pitch. What would you recommend that you just like, I have 2 minutes, I got so much information.
Yeah.
What can I do to take a breath, but I have only 2 minutes to go for it?
Yeah. Well, the principle that I would work with is if you've only got 2 minutes, have 90 seconds of content. That's where I would go to. Because if you've ever been on the receiving end of someone doing the fast 2-minute pitch, where all of the detail is just coming out quick, you'll know how little of that you're going to remember. So it gets credited to different people, this quote, but I'm sorry I wrote such a long letter, I didn't have time to write a short one, I think is a really useful principle for any of that kind of situation. So the prep that you'd probably need to do for a 2-minute pitch is likely to be more than you would have to do for a 2-hour pitch, I would say. So can you distill and distill and distill? And sometimes we get people to distill things down to even 8 seconds in a message to go, right, this is, if that one thing that people are going to remember, it's going to be this.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
look, I think there's a couple of things that stand out for me. One is you were talking about time. I was listening to how your pace changed as you were speaking, and I was listening for pauses like the one that I just made
Yeah.
that can absolutely feel like an eternity on the inside.
Yeah.
But on the outside, we don't even notice them.
Yeah.
In fact, to your point, they can add value as the listener can start to digest and go, now I'm ready for the next bit of information, because they get a chance to have a breath as a listener.
Yeah.
And we forget that. So I love that you pointed us towards prepare your audience to receive the message.
Yeah.
And then to Erwin's question, the thing that showed up for me is one around purpose. I got 2 minutes. What's the purpose of this? The purpose of this is not to replace a 90-minute movie.
Yeah.
The purpose of a 2-minute thing is to get to a 5-minute conversation, to get to a 10, to a 30 minute, to a 2 hour. It's to get to the next level.
Yeah.
And often we forget that.
Yeah.
I try to give everything because this is my only chance. But if I can be interesting enough now and actually not give some things to leave them kind of hanging, like, like the TV shows at the end of the season, it's like,
Yeah.
we got to talk. Let's have a conversation. Let's find some time. Brilliant. Let's get it on the calendar.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely spot on, Steve. And interesting, just as I was watching you there, just noticed that when you're doing the thing about they've got 2 minutes, like where does the breath go? Right up into the chest, right? And so what does that do? It makes you breathless. And then again, think about if you've ever had the agonizing misfortune of watching someone like a stand-up comedian or an actor just fall apart on stage, right? I hope you never do, but if you have, the entire room cannot breathe, right? The tension is horrendous. Because you're so desperate for this person to recover, and the more that they tighten, the less they can remember what they're trying to say, then the worse it goes. How we breathe literally affects how other people breathe. So if your breath shoots up into your chest, you're not leaving any space. You're taking snatch breaths to just keep topping up, even though you don't need them. You will be changing in very subtle ways, but significant ways, the breath of that room. And think about how what the implications for that for leaders who are in the spotlight all the time. How they breathe is how they're experienced in many ways by those that they follow and those that they work with, their stakeholders, their shareholders. The breath is a powerful thing.
And I think for a coach as well. So sitting
Yeah.
as a coach with a client, and the way you breathe, the way you can generate, because you could sit with a client that is like stressed, just by breathing you can change that. They're just more relaxed and get the time to speak and talk.
Absolutely, absolutely. As a client, the feeling of stuckness can be overwhelming at times. Think about, again, I don't want to make everything about the breath, but think about the breath and the physicality of stuckness, right? It needs something to open it up and space, create some space, and the presence of the coach and the quality of that presence can be the thing that supports that.
Well, I think I'm a little bit disagreeing. I think it's all about breath, because without breath, we don't live.
That is
We
a fair
don't live.
point.
It's like, how do you breathe makes the state of your body difference. It makes everything else. So it's maybe not the only thing, but it's the fun and one of the fundamental things to be able to communicate to how you feel as well in certain situations. That you can, even with those critic rasters, when we're talking about it, what came up to my mind was like, you need to see them like allies. That's what I understood when you say.
Yeah.
And if you see them as an ally, your breathing, your brain, how you breathe is going to change because you're not going to see them as a threat anymore.
Yeah. That's a really lovely point. And the allies changing your breath, I think, is spot on. Yeah. One little watch out that I'd offer as well is that there is maybe I'm just really sensitive to this, but there is nothing more disconcerting than sort of being aware that someone is focusing on their breathing whilst they're in a conversation with you. So I as a coach, I would really, and as a bit of advice, I would say, look, yes, breath, as you've said beautifully, is everything. See if you recognize that you've got a bit of work to do on how you get the breath centered and how you show up. Do a little bit of practice, not in front of your client. See if you can do it in a way that doesn't look like you've gone cross-eyed because you're only focusing on the in and out of the belly breath.
It's a good tip. Actually, I think it's the same topic. What I'm noticing is that we're talking about what it means to be a coach or to be a leader. This is not about the doing, although we're talking about actions. How we're breathing, how we're operating. It's not about the breath, it's the being, the threat versus the ally, Erwin, that you pointed to. So what do you know about the being of a coach that serves working with your clients?
I love that question. Let me think about that. For me, what I know about the being as a coach is, regardless of the status or power or seniority or not of that person, I'm going to meet them as a human being, right? I'm not meeting the role. I'm not meeting the briefing that I've got from someone or you know, all of that stuff, or the org chart that I might have seen, whatever that is. So sometimes the most powerful ways of being are simply through giving quality of attention. So, and there's a group actually that's popping into my mind from many years ago, where I was briefed endlessly by my client about, you know, how busy, how important, how much pressure, how difficult, how kind of unpleasant in some ways this group of people were. And inevitably I'm walking in going a little bit like, okay, this sounds fun. And I ran a series of programs with these groups over a number of years, and almost without fail, at least one or two people, men, I think every time, would be in tears at some point during the session. And my reflection at the time, and I think I still feel this, is that how infrequently rather, these people are likely to be met by people who don't have some kind of expectation or some kind of management of the connection between them that really is important. So whether most of these people would probably be junior and would perceive this person, perhaps rightly, to have their career in their hands, and therefore that drives their behavior, or clients who are looking at them going, I'm paying you a lot of money to deliver the results, now do it. And actually just cutting through that and simply seeing and being with someone and listening to that person and offering feedback and coaching in ways that aren't driven by those agenda, I think is some of the most powerful ways of being. There's lots, but that's the first one that pops into my head.
So basically what you're saying is, that's what I see, is that as a manager or a leader working with a team or with some person that you have objectives, you need to have that balance between, of course, you need to get that result, but show up also as a human, as you say,
Yeah.
because at that moment when you do this, you're going to get a much better and a quicker result with that person, because you are treating that person not only as an employee and get things done, but you treat them as a human, and that is going to make that person even do more to get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes people interpret that as they've got to stand around for hours asking everyone how their weekend was, or doing some really like contrived rapport building or something like that. You don't. Actually, it's how do you actually see the human being in front of them? And again, back to the breath. How do you breathe, create the breath for the relationship that serves connection rather than disconnection?
And how do managers and leaders see this? Because I imagine that I had that in the past. They could see this as a vulnerability to do.
Mm, mm,
So how do you treat that with them and to make sure that, hey, it's actually not a vulnerability?
mm. Well, actually, I'd say it is a vulnerability, and it's a really powerful vulnerability. The old school armored, here we go, leader is struggling to create followership now. So I would say actually uh, embracing the the not knowingness that comes with seeing and hearing and connecting in a human way is the game actually when it comes to in building those relationships and leading people. So I'd say embrace the vulnerability. I'm desperately trying not to say lean in because I keep hearing lean in all the time, and it's a great phrase, but I'm trying not to say it, and I've just blown it.
I'll just lean into it, man. It's out there
I
now.
will do, yeah. I've got to actually just whilst we're still on that topic, in terms of ways of being, as a coach, that something that is really in my mind at the moment, and it occurred to me that these are as much qualities for living a happy life or a fulfilling life as they are for being a coach. But I'd also say that back to I kind of joked earlier about non-attachment. I think cultivating the skill of letting go is one of the most powerful things you can do. Now, my personal feeling is as a human being, so being able to let go, reset, let go of expectation, have less attachment to outcome, and so on and so forth. I think it's a life's work, and more than a life's work for most of us, I would say. But if you can really bring that into your presence as a coach, your way of being as a coach, the gift of that for a client to be on the receiving end of non-attachment, to be around a presence that has letting go at its core, even that on its own can be deeply affecting.
That's what I sometimes happen when I do coaching consulting. It's like not letting go, and then the next call you say, "What was that about the previous call?" Because I just like to have the call and just go. I leave it with my client because it's actually theirs, and I should not worry. And then you go, "What was this about?" And then you
Yeah,
just get in conversation, you connect back, and then you can
yeah,
continue building on it. But yeah.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It's something that comes to me as you're speaking that sometimes just being there with, so a couple of things in this, being there with your
Mm,
client in the moment that you're in
mm,
is in itself a wonderfully empowering gift.
mm.
As you said, how we are being will lead and influence how our client is being. So if we can be in that moment and be present, they're able to join us with greater and greater ease. And as they come into this moment, as they start to let go of some of those other things, it's often those things that we hold on to that get in the way of us seeing what it is that we're looking for.
Yeah, yeah. And again, for people, especially people starting out in coaching, but not only people starting out in coaching, it's relevant for everybody. That need to earn a living and that need to do a good job with clients because you want them to come back for all the right reasons is very real. It's all very well to go let go, non-attachment, but you can't let go of the mortgage. Well, I guess you can, but it's not recommended. So that's a permanent dance, I would say.
But then on top of that, I think what's really important, and it's not only for coaching, but that's for everybody or every single person that helps someone else or a group of people.
Mm.
There are conversations where you have sometimes very deep, maybe hurting negative things.
Mm.
And then suddenly I see this with nurses and doctors. And I think coaches should learn this as well, is it's there, and it is not mine, because if you keep that attachment, it is going to influence you as a person, and you're going to start feeling bad. So I learned very quickly, say it's not mine. So that's why I can say I forgot what was the last session about, because I'm just like saying, it is not mine. It's not, I'm not the owner of it, and I need to leave this behind so I can be strong as a person, even for the next session, or with my family and so on.
Yeah, definitely. And back to one of your earlier questions about, why choose to get certified as a coach and things like that. That I think that's one of the many, but one of the biggest takeaways I got from doing a deep coach training over a number of years is that sense of exactly what you just said. So letting go, being able to see it as someone else's, not just from a self-care perspective, so you're not carrying it around all day, but much more importantly, potentially, that's what helps the client the most. If you're in a state of grit because you're locked into something you think they should do, there's no way that your presence is going to be serving their growth. It's going to be serving your idea that you've about what you think they should do, and that is difficult. And I think when I look back to pre-training, pre-certification, I was absolutely showing up as a coach from a perspective of wanting to fix things and wanting to make everything, good and better. And in some ways, that is part of my job. I am there to help them get results, and sometimes I need to train them to do this thing so that that thing goes better. So that's a slightly separate way of looking at it. But certainly as a coach, the revelation that you are of more service when you let go of the attachment to the client's outcomes, that was pretty revelatory for me.
And I think as an actor, you learn this from the very beginning, because as an actor, you just go, before you jump on the stage, you need to put yourself in a role. You need to play that role. And when you finish that role, you need to get back to yourself. Otherwise, your mind is going to completely nuts about it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why that's very real. That's why you hear and I had a couple myself actually, lots of stories of actors who have roles that they find it very difficult to sort of put down, and actually until they stop playing that role at the end of the theatre run or the end of the shoot or whatever it is, that's when they actually get back to themselves. It's it's an interesting psychological dance.
Well,
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're coming towards the end. This has been really interesting. Simon, thanks for these perspectives.
I just
One,
go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say one place we want to kind of bring in. So, as coaches, we talk about the profession of coaching, the delivery of coaching, but also the business side of coaching.
Mm.
Now, if you work for an organization or you're self-employed, give us a little bit of context around that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work for an organization called RADA Business, which is the business arm of RADA, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art actor training center. It's where I trained as an actor as well. So the majority of my clients come through that direction. Prior to joining RADA Business, I was freelance for 15 plus years. So I'm pretty familiar with both sides of the coin. Yeah,
I love
if
it.
there are
Well,
any two.
from either of those sides, like what was a big challenge that you had to face and you've been able to overcome in the space of business and leadership and coaching?
I think one of them we've already touched on, which was about giving myself permission to be in the room and confidence to clearly articulate what I'm doing and my perspective on things when I'm in a selling mode, if you like.
Mhm.
So giving yourself permission is really important, and that sounds easy, but I think the only way to do that is to do it as much as you can. I would also say it's linked that recognizing what business you're in, and that sounds a bit mystical, but really it's pretty simple. So you're not actually in the coaching business, right? You're in maybe there's an industry called coaching, but you're in my view, you're in the growth business, right? You're in the whatever bucket of growth you want to look at, whether it's personal transformation, personal growth, business growth, social impact growth. You're in the business of growth, and your ability to be able to clearly articulate value as opposed to articulate processes or articulate methodologies or articulate whatever school of coaching you went through or not, you're just your views on things. But to translate that into value is incredibly important. And the simpler the better. So things like, this will help you get the outcome in the meeting more than you are at the moment, right? This will enable you to move forward in this area of your life, or whatever it is. But how clearly and concisely can you articulate value statements as opposed to what you might call in sales talk, features statements, right? What's the value? What's the so what?
I love it. I love that you've also brought us back to that 2 minutes that Erwin pointed us to before.
Yes, yeah. Yeah. I think that is something that takes a bit of practice, right? Well, not most, a lot of coaches that I know anyway, feel less comfortable with the sales and the marketing side of the profession. And actually, it's just another part of the job. It's another persona almost for some people around being able to go in and talk about it and communicate the value.
So being different roles as an actor when you play different, whatever you do, if it's coaching or selling or being an admin person in your own coaching business.
Absolutely. And just to link back to that point around, I think I said earlier, I think we're all acting in some way. But this is for a longer conversation, but you should never underestimate the power of little small things that can shift your state quite radically, right? So shoes are one of them for me. And when I was training as an actor, I would always want to find the shoes of the character, and the way the character connects to the floor was a massive part of it for me. So if I was rehearsing, I'd always rehearse with some kind of costume to make it feel different in some way. And the number of business people that have looked at me as if I'm insane when I suggest these things, then they try them and they go, oh, if you've got a bit of, let's say you've got some selling to do, you've got some marketing to do, right? And it's your least favorite thing to do ever. What's the costume? If marketing sales persona was an ally, what's the costume you'd wear, right? What are the shoes? How does sales and marketing find the floor? What's the breath and voice of sales and marketing? Yeah, I could bang on about that endlessly, but I won't. But allow yourself to be playful.
I just want a curious question that I have. Because we've been talking about coaching business as an actor. Have you ever thought of going back as an actor and combine things?
Well, really, that's a very timely question. I'm at a point in my life where I am looking at lots of different potential avenues. So yes, in short, and I'm incredibly fortunate to still have strong ties to the profession. And I'd be really interested and curious to see what this version of me can do as an actor, as opposed to the in their 20s, pretty, I guess, I know, quite obsessive, dedicated, single focused. What does letting go look like for an actor? That would be fun.
Oh, keep us posted.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, we hope to see you on whatever stage it is that you want to be on, however that emerges. But
Simon, what you wish for, Steve?
Interesting. It's one of those stages, is it? He's going to be dancing for us. Well, look out for that, folks. It's
Look,
going to be
needs must, needs must.
Brilliant. Well, Simon, this has been fantastic. Thank you for your insights, and I love where this conversation went. For those that are curious to learn more about you and your work, or to see you on whatever stage that's going to be and bring their dollar bills or however that works, how can people connect with you?
Look me up on LinkedIn, Simon Delaney. I think I'm on LinkedIn as Simon Delaney PCC. You can also connect with me via RADA Business as well. And yeah, feel free. I feel like I've been the recipient of huge amounts of generosity and support on my journey, and paying that back is something that is a real pleasure for me to do. So if anybody does want to get in touch, please feel free.
Well, thank you very much, Simon. That was really exciting chat with you. I think
I really
I
enjoyed it.
learned
Thank you.
also a lot of things. I learned a lot of people are going to have like the small things that they're going to could take home. So thank you for that.
No, thank you. Thanks for a really interesting and fun conversation.
It's our pleasure. Goodbye.
Thanks for tuning in to The Coaching Edge. Until next time, keep coaching and keep growing.